Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this virtual summit from Digital Europe. Thank you all for joining today, this timely event to launch Digital Europe's digital investment plan for Europe. And we have some fantastic speakers here today. If you want to ask questions, you'll see the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. This is the place to put your questions. There is also a chat function, but that's for comments and other things. If you want to ask a question to any of our panelists or our speakers today, please put it in the Q&A function and I will bring those to the attention of our host, Cecilia Bonnefeld-Dahl, during today's event. Now, I just want to make one other thing clear to you. If at the moment you should be able to see the presentation on one side of the screen and my face on the other, you can drag the section in the middle either way to increase the size or decrease the size as you wish. Please do get involved as well on Twitter. Our hashtag today is, and for the entirety of this campaign, is hashtag A Stronger Digital Europe. So please do get involved on Twitter and on LinkedIn. I have one piece of bad news today. It's that the final speaker, the Austrian Minister for the Economy and Digital Transition, Margarete Schrambock, is unfortunately unable to join us. She was called at the last moment to a meeting. But she has sent us a video and she has agreed very kindly to answer our questions. And without further ado, I will now pass on to our host for today's event, Cecilia Bonnefeld-Dahl, the Director General of Digital Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome to everyone. I can see that we are nearly close to 200 participants already, and I'm of course delighted to welcome our distinguished speakers today. Our President for Digital Europe, Hilary Mine, not least His Excellency Minister of State and Economy and Digital Transition of Portugal, who's carrying the presidency very soon, Pedro Vieira, and Frederick Bernard from the Council. We have Eva Maydal, who is an MEP, but also the head of the new AI task force in the Parliament, Anthony Wieland, a long-standing collaboration partner and Ursula von der Leyen's digital advisor. We have Anja Monrad, who is a part of the Executive Board of Digital Europe, also Senior Vice President General Manager for Dell, and not least the President of the Skills and Jobs Coalition of the European Commission, and not least Ulf Persson, who is the Vice President, Head of Government Affairs and Industry Relation from Ericsson, and also a part of the Digital Europe Board. And unfortunately, Margarete Schrambock, whom I know very well, was unable to attend today. But as Chris just said, she has given us a very good and comprehensive video with her answers on the concrete question on investments. Welcome very much to this event. I don't know if any of you online actually remember the Masters of Digital 2 years ago. We launched a manifesto called A Stronger Digital Europe, where we really tried to make an effort of setting targets, very clear targets for where we would like to see a stronger digital Europe in 2025. So we made a promise that we would follow up and really measure the success. And then, of course, now we had the COVID crisis, which made the digital transformation even more relevant. And one of the feedback we received from many of our stakeholders was, be very concrete, tell us exactly where should we go, and give inspirations on concrete ideas and investments that you as an industry think that brings us towards those targets and goals. And 2 years ago, we actually put these 7 kind of key highlights. So a stronger digital single market, inclusion, green growth, innovation, trust, agile, mission-based policymaking, and leadership within industries and digitalization of industries. And we have taken a few months here to really work with our members to gather concrete input on how should we actually spend our money? How do we do wise investment to create a stronger digital Europe? And we have revised our KPIs in a range of these areas, basically updated them and say, where is it that the investment should be done now in this post-COVID era? Many of the investments that we recommended 2 years ago, it's actually still the same. It's more green, it's more AI, it's more SME growth, it's stronger cybersecurity, it's more access to data. But you can say there is no crisis that is, there's no crisis that doesn't create also opportunities. And one of the opportunities here is really that it has become very, very visible for us how dependent our educational system, our inclusion in democracy, how important and how dependent that is on connectivity, on digital skills, in actually giving the workforce the right skills to participate in the future, but also to take our world in a new direction towards a greener, a stronger, a more sustainable business and society in the next digital era. So these are some of the goals that we are driving towards. Let me just mention a few. SMEs selling online. When we looked at that for the first time, it was 8.9% actually selling across borders. We set a target now of 30%. We will need to strengthen our SME growth and really give them a market to grow in. One of the things that we're looking at is skills. We will have a lot of unemployment. People will depend on being able to reskill themselves into digital jobs, more digital jobs, and this is more relevant than ever in the post-COVID era. So let me just mention one more, which is, of course, health services. The connection between data and digital and health has become extremely visible, and the Commission has already started a big investment project in health. This is definitely one of our targets, also to strengthen this and really look at how we can make concrete investments in this. So if we look at the investment pool that we have now, please next slide. We have seen that a recovery fund around 750 billion euros has been put forward from the Commission. And here we recognize in our board two things. One, how can we have a pan-European investment strategy? And how can we make the investments in digital much more concrete and tangible for our stakeholders, so we can share our knowledge, things we take for given because we are geeks within this industry. How can we share that with policymakers, with our stakeholders, and how can we make it more visible, the hundreds of projects that are already creating a lot of value, and scale them on a pan-European level? This is exactly the background of this seminar and of Digital Europe's investment plan for a stronger digital Europe. I'm very happy to host you here today, and I will pass on the word to our president of Digital Europe, Hilary Mine from Nokia. Hilary, the word is yours.
Thanks, Cecilia, and thank you everybody for joining us today. The last few months have been difficult for all of us, but in the moment of crisis is always creating opportunity. And I would say, in fact, necessity is the mother of invention. So I think these are times that are inspiring as well. From their unprecedented post-COVID stimulus package and the focus on the twin green and digital transitions, the EU has shown leadership and foresight. We're very pleased to see the 20% target, as you know. We have to reinvent ourselves so that when we beat COVID, we're more competitive, more inclusive, greener, and more resilient than before. Investments in digital are essential for that, which is why this 20% target is so important. However, a lot of digital investments are not traditional when it comes to stimulus spending. Spending on digital can seem vague, difficult to explain to constituents and colleagues, and the expected returns may seem too far away. That's where the industry can help, and we're very pleased today to be launching our paper on Digital Investment Plan for Europe. It's published today, get it off the website. We've identified 10 pan-European investment priorities that will deliver jobs, growth, and progress towards our climate goals over the next 5 years. That includes making our digital reskilling and upskilling a priority and bringing all our schools and students into the digital age. According to the European Commission, 42% of European adults do not have basic digital skills. In addition, 52% of the workforce, as Cecilia mentioned, need reskilling due to changes in the job market. At the same time, there are hundreds of thousands of unfilled vacancies for ICT professionals in Europe. COVID-19 has intensified the need for reskilling the European workforce. Workers in a range of sectors such as tourism, manufacturing, and healthcare have all seen their jobs change radically in the past few years, and that's accelerated during the pandemic. The Commission's investments in the health data space are a great start, but we have a lot more to do. All Europeans should be able to see themselves as part of the future job market, and digitalization should leave no one behind. Beyond employability, basic digital skills are also essential to empower citizens to take advantage of e-government and participate fully in modern democracies. Our digital investment plan also includes harnessing the potential of health data and ensuring our hospitals and medical professionals can take advantage of the latest technologies to prevent, track, and treat COVID-19 and other diseases, including future pandemics that we can and must be better prepared for. Moreover, digital technologies are key to speeding up medical research and outcomes. Health systems now produce as much as 30% of the world's stored data. Unfortunately, most of that is paper-based and remains siloed in hospitals and other medical organizations. In addition to a bold legal framework supported by member states, investment is needed to digitize, connect, and secure those disparate data systems. The technology required to move to a paperless environment is here, but adoption of electronic health records, stands at about 3% in Europe today. So again, the Commission's investments in the health data space are a great start, but there's a long way to go. Our digital investment plan for Europe also prioritizes support for small and medium business, which are the engine of all of our economies, to digitize and enable paperless administration to allow them to thrive. We propose a Europe-wide e-administration portal to ensure that smaller businesses can take advantage of new technologies and free up resources to focus on their core business. This can be done by defining a standard for electronic receipt and by investing in structures for conveying economic information. This information forms a basis for automated collection of taxes and dramatically reduces administrative burden both on public sector and on companies. Data sets gathered from electronic receipts are also valuable in their own right and could form the basis for new kinds of services. Such an initiative is already being piloted in the Nordic countries under the Nordic Smart Government Project. Replicating this to cover the whole continent could strengthen the Europe single market and save companies millions of euros and millions of hours of productivity. The digital investment plan for Europe also calls for investing in digital technologies to be at the center of the building renovation wave, particularly to ensure we can achieve our carbon goals while creating much needed jobs. Buildings generate about 40% of the EU's energy consumption and 36% of its greenhouse gas emissions. The Recovery Fund will be instrumental in allocating extra spending to retrofit older, publicly owned buildings such as social housing, schools, town halls, and hospitals. Digital public-private partnerships can be a key pillar in such renovation strategies. We also need to prioritize investment to unlock the potential of public data for smarter, safer, and more energy-efficient cities. And last, but by no means least, and most fundamentally, in fact, we have to prioritize the availability of affordable, fast, reliable, and secure connectivity that's inclusive for citizens across rural, suburban, and city addresses, enabling for the new normal modes of working. We need to prioritize, in addition, availability of the most basic necessary tool, again, fast, reliable, secure, and affordable ultra-high-speed connectivity for the digital transformation of traditional industry sectors such as manufacturing, ports, transportation, utilities, and more. That means ensuring 5G and fiber investments are viable and accelerated. In support of these 10 investment themes, we've put together over 30 case studies from across Europe. These are concrete examples from our members who are already putting these projects into place at national level. And I have to say that the response from our membership has been fantastic to develop this paper, so I hope you'll really enjoy it. For example, we look at our Belgian National Association member Agoria, who've put into place a pioneering skills forecasting initiative powered by AI. Their analysis of the Belgian job market predicts that equipping people with the right skills can lead to almost 300,000 vacancies being filled by the year 2030. This could easily be implemented in other countries and scaled up to the European level. Another example comes from Schneider Electric, whose digital energy management system allows a Lidl warehouse in Finland to emit 40% less CO2 emissions and reduce energy costs by half. So again, imagine what we could do for Europe if we scaled that up. A third example comes from Digital Europe member IVSZ, working with IFCA in Hungary, where they launched a program called IPAR 4.0, which is a free program providing hands-on experience and knowledge to micro and small businesses to learn about Industry 4.0 technologies and their applicability and to increase their competitiveness. They started out with a survey of small and micro businesses to understand the real issues with adoption of digital, and of course, it's much more complex than just availability of technology. So the project integrated a variety of services in its small business support, from technology workshops and demos to business planning and production practices. And thanks to this very hands-on and holistic approach, the small businesses participating in the project report increased productivity, more efficient communication with clients and suppliers, and increased use of AI and automation tools in production plans. To date, the program has reached 2,600 small businesses, and 131 of those have completed a digitalization roadmap. We hope that these concrete examples provide inspiration for governments across Europe, as well as guiding the European institutions towards the kinds of projects that will bring our continent together while striving it forward. Our message is a simple one. The technology is here, and thanks to the recovery funds, we have the means to create a stronger and more resilient digital Europe. Let's grasp this opportunity. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll turn now to our keynote, the Minister of State for Economy and Digital Affairs for Portugal. Cecilia, back to you.
Thank you so much. I think we actually had a very good question already. So thank you to the participants for really writing your questions down. We will collect all of them and try to answer as many. And I will sneak a little bit and say, yes, there was a request for, will you actually have targets on education? And for sure, and we can maybe ask the panelists later if they also see it in the same way. So let me turn to our first speaker, His Excellency Minister of State, Economy and Digital, Pedro Cid Vieira. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce it totally perfect. Welcome very much. We're very honored to have you here today.
It's a pleasure.
Well, you are actually going to carry the presidency of this exciting times. I would say also play a major role in these investment plans of the EU. We have allowed ourselves to ask you a few questions. I mean, can you tell us a little bit how Portugal as a country looks at this 20% digital spending target and how you think you will make best use of those?
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon to you all. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that this government took office just a year ago. We identified as priorities for this term in government the topics of green transition, digital transition, inclusion, and demography. And we saw these three areas as extremely interconnected, because if you go more digital, you will be able to better manage resources and therefore work on the basis of a greener country and a greener economy, and also that it supports the inclusion effort that we all must make so that no one leaves behind. And just in February, at the early days of the pandemic, we passed our action plan for digital transition, where we put the idea that digital transformation should be helpful in supporting Portugal in transforming the economy and the society by leaving no one behind and making sure that digital technologies would pervade all the economic aspects of life and society. And the thing is that we have very clear priorities in this respect, both in terms of the inclusion and people aspects of our digital transformation, the SMEs area, and the penetration of technologies in value chains, and finally on government, to make sure that we took a step further. We compare relatively well in terms of digital government across Europe. We compare relatively well in terms of the innovation capacity of our companies. Portugal is actually seen as a strong innovator country by the EU Innovation Scoreboard, the only such country in South and Eastern Europe. But we believe that we can go further and develop even more. So we took the opportunity of the pandemic by watching this in two manners. The extraordinary, terrible impact that this has had in the society, as on the one hand, accelerated the adoption of digital technologies by a lot of SMEs and made a very significant number of the population who had little digital literacy to be forced to take over these technologies. So we now know that we have a path that we can work on. And certainly Next Generation EU and the requirement to use 20% of the funds available to the country on the digital transition is also helping us to accelerate our digital plans. So basically, what are we trying to do other than working around the SMEs? And I think that Hilary's comment just gives us a significant glimpse. I wanted to focus on two things. First, on schools. We believe that on the early ages, we should use digital technologies to transform how children learn and what children learn. It's the program is about, and was decided to for the duration of the term, to bring in digital technologies into the classroom, to train and retrain teachers to be able to make better use of collaborative technologies and also to change the experience in the classroom, working around content so that children have materials to work in the classroom, and also the connectivity of schools and children at home. This was tested during the times of lockdown, where we had a lot of improvisation around making distance learning a fact. We had to make a lot of efforts to bring in technologies to children which were deprived of economic means to have those. But I think we are now in the good stead. It's about changing the way children learn, but it's also making sure that we go into earlier stages to start learning about coding and programming in what they learn. This is one area which I would like to focus. Another area which will be very significant is about government. I used to say that the way we now relate with our banks and financial institutions, with the way we purchase, we changed completely the way we involved with these large organizations in the recent years. And we must do the same in how companies and citizens connect with government. So we want to have a very significant investment in digital government and focusing particularly on three areas. Justice, not only how courts, but also registries work, and changing the way citizens and companies connect with that sector. We believe that the real transformation will only come out of this investment. We are going to change also the social security system. It is the largest paying institution with most customers in this country, and we need to make sure that we bring this up to a new level. And finally, the health services. The health services have a lot to gain from technology. So it's about people, it's about companies, it's about administration across the spectrum. A lot of efforts in inclusion, retraining, upskilling people. But I think these two flagship projects in schools and government are very significant, both in terms of value and the potential for transformation of the country.
Thank you so much. It sounds really like you are also, the government sector is really taking the leadership of this, which I think is definitely one of the things that we have learned and heard, is that there is a need for...
Government needs to follow, because we have a society and an economy which is advancing, and government must not be a burden on how company works. We need to bring in government to the 21st century and make sure that we are at the same pace with the rest of the country.
Thank you so much. So maybe another question now. We have seen that the Commission and under your presidency has said that there will be kind of an evaluation of the different country plans. I mean, what are the plans there? Do you think it will result in a more consolidated common European strategy? You know, that will there be more coordination across countries, or how will you do this evaluation of the country plans?
Well, I think, as you know, the national recovery plans need to be submitted to the European Commission in draft form from mid-October until the end of the year. And there will be a discussion between the Commission and each country to make sure that the plans not only are aligned with the global goals that the Union has defined, but also that we work towards measurable milestones and objectives which we can monitor the plans against. So the Commission is doing both the effort of looking into how the national plans align with the general objectives that have been defined, but also that we are using the funds to finance investments that really are aligned with the reforms that the Union requires. And I think this is going to be a very significant step towards making sure that all countries are aligned. And I think there's a lot of synergies there, because if you look into these national plans and the reforms they are trying to finance with the goals that we are defining at the European Union level in terms of, you know, developing the internal market, developing regulation for technology, data, and the access. This will bring in the national strategies more in place. And of course, then the Council will approve the national plans based on the advice of the Commission after all this dialogue being brought together. I think a very significant scope that we have here is also to align the national investment plan .
I think I lost the sound for a second. Good reason why to invest in connectivity. So do I have the sound back, Chris?
Having a few issues on the side of the minister's connection, I think. Working on that.
I will wait. Then maybe while I wait, I will just you know, look in the chat box and see if I can maybe ask some of the questions that are directly targeted to us. There's a question on, okay, you have a 60% target on e-health. What about the 40% of people who will be left behind? That's a good question, but actually this target is extremely ambitious, and I totally, if I could say 100%, I would. But if we look right now, we are not even at 20%. I think the current target at the moment is around 17 or 18% using actually e-health services. So yes, if we can make the target a little bit longer, maybe we can say 100%, but we're trying to really set some targets that we can monitor and where we all can push ourselves. But thank you very much for the question. And I can actually mention that in the guide is a very exciting example of a project in Portugal, actually, where there are 6 digitalized hospitals, totally paperless and integrated. So there are a lot of progress out there, but still a long way to go. And Chris, can I have a status? Can I take another question?
I would take another question because they are logging out.
We're back in business. Sorry.
Okay, great. Back in business. I guess connectivity is on your list also, right?
Well, to be honest, we have excellent connectivity in the country. It's actually one of the areas where we rank very well. But unfortunately, we have the usual premises for this taken. So I'm using an area which is not well served.
No problem, no problem. So maybe just looking at the presidency and going a bit more towards the policy areas, which will be the kind of the priority for the presidency on policy, and will it also be digital files?
Well, we have an agenda which is significant in the digital area, but I think that we are also planning very hard on two events, the Digital Assembly and the Digital Day. And we are submitting to national countries a declaration, which basically is aiming to present the idea that the differentiating factor that Europe can offer to the world in terms of the digital space is basically to affirm citizen rights, and that alone is something which is already distinguishing Europe, and that we want to advance this by sharing this declaration with all member countries, but also opening it to private operators which can share these same values as a sort of platform to work within these new technology. And I think this is one of the areas where we want to make a difference.
Thank you so much. And maybe one last question. So Portugal recently signed a joint letter with several other member states on calling basically for an increase in the EU climate targets. How do you see the digital investment linked to these climate targets?
Well, I think I will be preaching to the converted in that respect, because I believe that we all appreciate that using digital technologies, as I said, working with data at a very large scale, and making sure that cities, companies, systems are all connected and sharing data is the best way to improve efficiency in all aspects of life, whether in use and production of energy, whether in managing waste systems, whether in making more effective and efficient industry operations, in managing all sorts of areas where we can reduce efficiency. I don't believe that, other than by very large investments in terms of transportation systems, logistics and energy production, there can be any other systematic manner to have a more circular economy, a less extractive economy, and a more efficient manner to run a modern life in cities and our companies than by making abundant use of digital technologies. And I think that it is in this connection between the digital and the physical world that we can make the most gains. And I think that there lies also one of the greatest opportunities for economic growth around the innovations that we can muster in these areas.
When you look at kind of industry, okay, now we have this investment plan that we are launching today. Do you think that there are initiatives or things that you would like to ask from industry? I mean, what can we do better in highlighting, you know, progress or investments or projects on digital? Is there anything that you feel that how we could make of ourselves more of a help for policymakers to understand digital investments or policies?
Well, yes, I think there are, maybe I would say 2 or 3 things. The first one is that I think government lacks a clear understanding of what the constraints and the opportunities are to foster an environment and a framework which makes easier for technology and digital technologies to go around society. We must make sure that we combine the values and the public interests that government needs to ascertain even in a changing environment, but we must do so by remaining faithful to the core principles of European civilization, but well adjusted to a new era where digital technologies will pervade all aspects of life. And I don't think government understands this enough, and we need to talk more closely to even educate policymakers and policy deciders. That's one thing. The second thing is that I don't believe that we will have a faster development of technology in Europe if we don't make sure that the most people and the most companies are brought up to speed to what needs to be done. And if I look at the level of digital literacy, the level of the capacity of our SMEs to make the most of it by adjusting their business models to the possibilities of new technologies, I think there's a lot to be done. And I think that the most interested in making sure that we have a larger market by bringing in more people and companies into this is precisely the industry. And I think that an effort to promote inclusion, digital literacy, reskilling, retraining, and making sure that companies become more aware of the various possibilities would benefit tremendously by the concerted efforts of the industry operators, where I think a lot needs to be done. In Portugal, our government has been working with a lot of the industry in identifying, skills shortages, the needs the ability to develop training contents to actually reskill, upskill the population by bringing in industry together to make sure that we have ways to communicate with the SMEs on, becoming aware of the possibilities, testing, adjusting, and some coaching. We need to continue to work there. Of course, with Next Generation EU, we will be financing a lot of these programs. But I think that if industry will take initiative or even take advantage of funding available to go there, knowing exactly how, it's just creating market by making by growing awareness. That's basically the second topic.
Yeah. So listen, we have a lot of questions from the audience, so Chris, I would like to turn to you just to see if we maybe have time to just take one question for the minister.
I would just like to ask a question. Here's a question here from Samuel Stolten. Portugal will be taking control of the presidency in the first half of next year after the Digital Services Act has been presented by the Commission. What is the minister's priority for discussions between the member states on this file?
Well, the agenda is very much set up, right? It's a legislative agenda. As I said, we wanted to put forward this idea of a declaration on, digital rights and as a sort of differentiating factor for Europe in a technological era. But I think that the opportunity to have these discussions ongoing will be precisely on how best to align national plans. Europe lags behind other areas in the world in a number of topics. And Europe has dominated the technologies of the 20th century. This has given us the ability to export goods and services to the rest of the world. And by doing so, having this dominance to make sure that we have the ability to provide our citizens a level of welfare and well-being that is unsurpassed in human history. And I think that if we want to be able to provide to our citizens, for the benefit of our democracies and our societies, the same level of well-being, we must make sure that we don't lag behind in digital technologies. And I think that this is much more than just, the legislative agenda, which usually takes years because all the we do small steps in each presidency because we are taking care of all the, the interests, and the drafting is making sure that we focus on this ongoing discussion, on making sure that that we have an environment which fosters innovation and makes the most of the population really benefiting and participating in this digital transformation. And if we fail to do that, we will lag behind.
Thank you so much. I think I will just round off here by saying thank you and highlighting a few things. I think you mentioned skills, bringing teachers into the digital era. It is actually one of the major targets that we have in our investment plan also, and I hope that you will find inspiration on concretely how to do that in the paper. You mentioned health, of course, which is more relevant than ever. And as mentioned, we also have examples even from Portugal on how to actually do that, and not least government services actually to be able to communicate and have an inclusive democracy even in times of crisis. Thank you so much for your leadership. I hope that we will see, and we will for sure do our best to support you during the presidency, with coordinating also, on pan-European level, and give all the input that we can, in the inputs that we can from industry. So thank you, and very, very warm thank you to you for your keynote here, and I hope that you can stay a little bit longer to listen maybe to some of the other keynotes. Thank you so much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So turning to the next small subject, or big subject, I would say, is our panel. We will actually see a row of people. Oh, I am forgetting something. The slides are not fast enough with me introducing the panel. Before I introduce the panel, I have to do a poll. And so the poll is on member states must invest 20% of their COVID recovery fund, reminding you that the recovery fund is 750 billion euros, and 20% has to go to digital. How should they spend it? You should have on your screen popping up a survey where you can select the ones that you believe are the most important area to actually invest in. So I will leave you to basically click the ones that you believe are the most important investment areas, and in half an hour's time we will return with the result of this survey. These are, of course, some of the areas that are mentioned in our new digital investment strategy for Europe. And I hope that you will all be voting, and that Chris will give us the result after the panel session. So it should take only a minute. So please be a little bit interactive here, and do your voting on the most interesting area that you think we should be investing in. Good. So jumping to the next, how do we make digital recovery a reality? So we have been doing the slogans, walk the talk. We don't have time for strategies, we need plans. Of course, being business people, this is how we say there's a time to plan and there's the time for execution. And I think we all feel the pressure of execution after this, no, I would say during this COVID pandemic. So to help us to basically have a discussion on how do we make this a reality, we actually have some of the people who are making this a reality. I would like to welcome the head of cabinet to president of the European Council, Charles Michel, Frédéric Bernard, Eva Maydale, a long-standing collaboration partner from the European Parliament, an MEP in the European Parliament, and heavily involved now and before in digital policy. Anthony Wieland, digital advisor to President Ursula von der Leyen, and also a long-term collaboration partner in digital policy, very experienced gentleman. Anja Monrad, who I introduced before, is the chair of the Digital Skills and Jobs Coalition of the European Commission, but also, of course, Senior Vice President from Dell Technologies and a part of the board of Digital Europe. And not least, Ulf Persson, who is the VP and Head of Government for Industry Relations of Ericsson, and also a board member of Digital Europe. Welcome very much, and thank you for joining us here today. So let's go straight to the first speaker, which is Frederik. Frederik, I trust that I have you online here with your camera on. I hope.
Yeah, you should have me, but I think you should unlock my camera.
We need unlocking of the cameras of the panel participants, please. Oh, yes, good. You know, it's good to have a little bit of control when it's used with care. Thank you so much for being here, Frederik, and thank you for a very good collaboration also in general with the Council. I think the Council has played a major role in also driving this digital investment plan with the Commission. And of course, now the devil is in the details, and the walk is in the talk, and all that, you know. So it has to become a reality. So at the beginning of October, the Council basically had the conclusion that digital was really important, and I think we had some very clear and ambitious statements from the Council. Could you please tell us a bit more about how the European leaders, how they prioritize when it comes to digitalization, and what are the, I mean, what would you like to highlight at the areas of digital investment?
Thank you, Cecilia, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. So just to introduce myself, I'm Frédéric Bernard. I'm the head of cabinet of President Michel, and I'm very pleased that you say that the conclusions of the European Council are very clear, and it's not always the case that we receive such compliments. No, what I would like to focus on, if you allow me, just shortly, is that I think the crisis has shown how important digital is, and you have different debates. I think the first one, when you look at leaders level, is one of the also, to put it in geopolitical terms, how Europe can also strike a right balance between security and ownership, and not being lagging behind. It was said by the minister a few minutes ago. And how you would strike a balance between sovereignty, European production, and also remaining an open economy. And I think this debate is crucial. So that's maybe the framework in which we are working. Very important, I think, when we are now trying to recover from the crisis, and the crisis is not over. You remember that we have reached an important deal in July, more than 1.8 trillion euros, and we see two pillars in the recovery: climate and digital. And on climate, we have a clear goal, and we know what we want to achieve by 2050. We want to be carbon neutral by 2050. It's a bit less clear on digital, how we want to have a clear compass, how we want to have a clear objective. And that was the idea and the intention by President Michel to put this on the agenda of the leaders, is that we now set a clear goal on digital. And this is why you have those conclusions. I invite them, you to all of you. Of course, you know better the stuff than me, but that was really the objective. It was to set a clear goal on what we want to achieve, and also to task member states, and that we commit all together to stick to our commitments. We are also asking the Commission to come with clear strategies, clear plans by the beginning of next year. That's also an important element, that we have a follow-up to those objectives. How to make this a reality? I think that's the first step, is to have a clear objective that we want to improve, that we all look into the same direction. Putting it on the agenda is the first major step. You might have seen also that we have asked to use the recovery plans. You have the European level, you have the national level, and we have Next Generation Europe. And in this, we are asking member states to dedicate at least 20% of their money with digital. We have seen some member states committing to do more, and this will be for the Commission to implement. It's huge. 20% doesn't sound like a huge amount of money, but when you see the objective of the recovery, then so the amount of work and investment that are needed, putting 20% on digital is really, really huge. And now it will be for the implementation. That's maybe more for the colleague of the Commission and from the cabinet of Commissioner von der Leyen to explain how they see the concrete implementation. For us, it was to set the objective that we make sure that we have clear objective, that we give the signal that this money should be invested. I'm a bit afraid to be too long, so I will stop here if you allow me, but I'm open to any follow-up question, of course.
Okay, and yes, definitely we will have follow-up questions. I already have a lot of questions for you, Friedrich, and I am sure that other people have too. We have more and more questions in the chat. So I will pass to you, Eva, in the European Parliament. You have also played a long-standing role in really bringing digital to the top of the agenda in Brussels and in Europe. So thank you for that. You are now also the new coordinator of the Committee for AI and in the Digital Age. So congratulations on that. What would be the key spending priorities that you would like to highlight that we need to become a leader, for example, in AI or other technologies? And how about availability of data? How does that kind of play a role?
So first of all, Cecilia, thank you very much for the invitation. I have to say that the topic that we've posed today is something that I've been talking with my colleagues in the European Parliament for a number of months now. So it was one of these invitations when I received it. It was kind of, I responded right away because it's exactly the sort of things we need to be talking. So much time and focus is put on how much resources, what are the numbers, what are the percentages, and I kind of feel, especially within the European Parliament, way less time is spent on the how. So for me, it's really important to talk on this topic, not just within the Brussels bubble, but just like today, we are joined by representatives of various member countries, because we would like to actually achieve those percentages. We would actually like to see coherent investments that are resilient, that are sustainable, and most importantly, technologically advanced. I will focus on two overarching ideas, so to say, on how to spend it. On the first side would be projects that will help bridge the digital divide, and projects that will enhance our infrastructure and capabilities to work in a fully digitalized economy as well as industry. So if I have to elaborate a little bit more on the first idea, I think, as it was mentioned also before, the lockdowns truly showed that digital transformation is not just words, but it's finally a more actionable, so to say, transformation. Because this time it was the events that kind of pushed the start button of the digital transformation. And it was not necessarily done by the CEO or by the CTO of a company. And what I mean here is not just to empower a company to be able to set up a Zoom account. What we want to have is that more and more European companies understand the tech and data could help them to be faster, could help them to be better, and to make, most importantly, more informed decisions. I think digitalization is seen by the small and medium businesses also as the difference between survival and not being able to survive nowadays. So I think, this sector, seeing how it could harness from putting and enabling technological services in their businesses could put us on a good track to bridge the digital divide that we still have in Europe. I always feel a little bit bad when I speak about the digital divide, because that's something we talked about 10 years ago. But unfortunately, we see this division in a broader societal sense. And I mean, not only the skills gap, but also the equipment gap. So bridging the digital divide for me would mean making sure that every company or organization has truly access to the digital solutions, that it can participate in the digital economy. I mean, after all, today's most successful businesses are those that harness that potential of data, of open data, that they're using the digital technologies, not just to boost productivity or make sure that they reinvent their internal processes, but most importantly, to reinvent their operational models. Their value chain, their customization shapes. So I'd like to be more mission-based in a way, digitalization, that industries are not getting digital just because there is some sort of a funding available or for the sake of it, but they do it with a more vision. And this leads me, and I'll be very brief, to my second point. What are the sort of projects that could help us enhance these digital capabilities? Because when I say mission-based digitalization, I mean for us to use the momentum of the Next Generation EU plan and invest in projects that are shaping the new economy. Of course, enhancing connectivity, entering in this open data sharing initiatives, investing in clean tech, Internet of Things, enhancing cybersecurity. And for this, I think when we particularly speak about regions and member states, I think it would be very important for some of those maybe not so well prepared regions or member states to kind of have this shovel-ready projects, to kind of say, these are the projects we can scale up. And so that's why I think today's discussion and the study that has been prepared are so important, because these are the projects that would make us our economies way more competitive, because in the end it would be the sum of all European economies that will push the EU competitiveness as a whole on an equal footing with the rest of the world. I think too often within regional or local or even the European Parliament, we spent a little bit too much time on how Europe could become better into something as opposed to other continents. And I find this sometimes being a little bit narrow-minded, because we could spend these thoughts, this energy on how to focus, not so much on how to rule against something, but how to enable rules to support our startups, our SMEs, our regions, our talented people, how to upskill them. And I'm glad that this is not just an opinion that I formed myself by any means, but this is an opinion I hear all the time when meeting with European businesses. So I think we need to make sure that the legislation, now speaking of legislation, when it comes our way, we enhance that principle in the data strategy, in the AI framework. It's better to enable our companies rather than restrict them. But I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I note your last comment. And of course, Friederike is also aware that we just had a letter from 14 countries actually saying, be a little bit careful with too much over-regulation on AI. Let's also focus at the enabling mechanisms of AI and only on high-risk areas. So, so I think we actually see a very common view, both on country and on EU level. So thank you for highlighting that also. So I will turn to the next speaker. So Anthony Wieland, also one of the cruciates of digital, I believe, in Europe, and really a knowledgeable gentleman in digital policy and investment. So Anthony, I think we heard some very clear visions from the president, and I expect that you might have had a little bit to do with that. In her State of the Union speech, she was very clear, 20% target, very ambitious, and you imagine that there was an industry organization that was extremely really delighted to see that our leaders in Europe has really understood the enabling effect of digital, and not only that it is a discipline in itself, but really is an enabler for change. So for the Commission, what are the priority digital projects that you feel that we should be investing in and carrying out? And what will you be known for in 5 years to have implemented, and really walked the talk on?
Hi, Cecilia, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be able to intervene on this subject at this time and with this panel. Maybe the first thing I should say, just with a nod back to Frédéric, is that both the very fact that we are having this discussion about how to spend with the member states, primarily in the Recovery and Resilience Facility, very substantial amounts of money agreed with the European Council is of course very much thanks to the enormous efforts of President Michel, and more specifically and more recently the incredibly fast agreement between the State of the Union speech on the 16th of September and European Council conclusions on, I think, the 2nd of October to get consensus on the 20% digital target, with, of course, a lot of movement in the background by organizations such as Digital Europe, is, again, thanks to very good cooperation. Now, as Mrs. Beaton would say, if you want to cook goose, you must first catch your goose, and this discussion is not completely over. I think we're confident that with the European Parliament, that has, of course, a certain number of outstanding issues in the discussion, that we will bring this over the line and hopefully very quickly. And I'm pretty sure that the 20% digital target is not a sticking point. But of course, the question of how money is well spent under the right governance conditions is not completely distinct from the question, how do we design good projects that are good for our future, for our resilience, for our open digital autonomy, and so on. Now, when we get into that, I think this is an area where really there are no prizes for originality. We are doing better when we find that we all agree on things, on what should be, in Eva Meidel's expression, the shovel-ready projects, or in digital, what should we call them? The cursor-ready or the server-ready projects. So it's interesting to compare the highlights that the Commission set out in mid-September in the annual growth survey, and the 10 key areas that Digital Europe has kindly presented to the President and to the world today. And I see very substantial overlap between them. Obviously, connectivity and basic but very high performance infrastructure, as well as more advanced infrastructures like our data processing industry, our supercomputing industry. The move into areas such as skills, into modernizing our public administrations, including in the broad sense of our health and our and educational systems, the need for digital skills to be a major focal point. And these are things that do not emerge from the ether, let us say. I mean, the Commission, for example, just 2 weeks ago, brought out its Digital Education Action Plan with a lot of important learnings from the crisis. Digital saw us through, but I think we also learned that the pure digital education is not the future. It's a mix. You need human contact. It's why a lot of member states are keeping a priority on trying to keep schools open, even in the current very difficult time. We had our new skills strategy, I think, in July. We will be coming, hopefully, in a few weeks' time with the data governance strategy, which will include, I think, ideas on how to open up the last more difficult areas of open public data, which the Digital Europe plan has mentioned. Now, for some of these areas, we see an important European flagship role. These things work better if they are done to a broadly common standard at the European, across Europe, such as in 5G and fiber connectivity. There are areas where we can only do it together as Europe. I'm quite proud to announce that just in the course of this week, we are signing some of the supercomputing procurement contracts of this phase of our high performance computing strategy, which is involved a lot of common work with the member states to get commitment to something that we can only do together. We saw last week, I think, the signature of perhaps 23 member states of the cloud declaration, underlining the commitment to interconnecting European capacities in this area, which is, of course, all about expanding choice for users of different models, of different portability and security guarantees, and not just to return to an often recurring theme of how open is the autonomy or how autonomous is the openness. This is always about building European capacities and building choice, and not about excluding anyone who is a legitimate player in the European marketplace in accordance with European rules. That's possibly enough just to set my ball rolling, and back to you, Cecilia.
Thank you so much. Anthony, maybe a very quick question. Do you see that the member states are pulling in the same direction? I mean, is it skills? Is it 5G? I mean, infrastructure? Are the subjects being discussed? Are they more or less the same at the moment?
Well, I'm not actually reading the various draft plans that are coming in, and for the moment I think we've only seen a very few of them. What I can say is I'm not detecting any real disagreement with the overall priorities. Different member states are in different places on things like connectivity. So some of them have bigger hills to climb than others, but no one can claim that they're in a good place on 5G. So I think there we have to pull together. It's different as regards, say, fiber connections. So equally in the area of skills, I think everyone has more to do, but some have more to do than others. So I think we will see different emphases in the different national plans, but I'm not expecting massive outliers that want to do something completely different in the digital space. There are, of course, those that will also see the opportunities in digital combined with green, but that again is something that I would hope to see happening across the board as part of, say, renovation, digital modeling of buildings, and so on.
Thank you so much, Anthony. So I will turn to Anja Monrad, who is the chair of the Skills and Jobs Coalition and also a board member of Digital Europe. Anja, you are really close to the development of digital skills and the development and initiatives taken from Europe, and of course also in Denmark, I know, through ITB and other activities. I mean, what is the areas, what are the skills areas that you believe that we should really focus at in these investment plans, and what opportunities are there right now?
So thanks Cecilia, and thanks for having me. I'm so happy to hear skills being mentioned so many times during the previous presentations and talks, because even the greatest technology is totally useless if people don't know how to use it. And coming from a technology company, we definitely appreciate that. And report shows that 42% of EU citizens still lack basic digital skills. And even though the most jobs today require them, and we've also seen throughout the couple of last months of pandemic situation how digital skills are really critical. Businesses are facing challenges, and especially SMEs are lagging behind when it comes to addressing and using digital skills. So it's not only helping people find the jobs in what is increasingly a digital economy, but it can also help SMEs reach new customers and new markets. And really, digital skills are the foundation for innovative startups. And we've also seen that in the last couple of months. And finally, and most importantly, what we've learned in the last couple of months is that digital skills empower all of us as citizens. So really, hence my strong urge for governments to prioritize the issue. And it really starts at schools. And we heard that before as well from Minister Vieira. You know, government should really look at their education systems and ensure that digital skills are embedded in the school curriculum from an early age. And it also requires, and very importantly, the training of teachers and providing schools with the right technology. This is not about schooling from home. This is using technology on-site, on-premise in schools. And on that topic, Dell Technologies have, in partnership with the STEM Alliances, we will host a policy hack competition in the end of November. And you know, this event will bring together teachers and policymakers from across Europe to design policy solutions and come up with some actionable recommendations to make way better use of technology in teaching and in learning practices. And that is really needed. The next step is choice of career and education, and government should promote STEM-related careers to more young people so we can get more young people in EU trained. So they're not just only using technology, but really creating technology themselves. And we have seen member states increase number of STEM educational seats in this year, but we need that to continue going forward. And finally, government should dedicate enough resources to reskill and upskill today's workforce. It's not only obviously crucial to match the new demands of the job markets, it's also a condition for a successful digital transformation of our companies, and again, especially SMEs, which are the backbone of the European economy. So here, private-public collaboration could still very much be used to promote digital skills so that educators can benefit from the expertise from tech companies like my own. For instance, companies could be given opportunities to provide mentoring, short-term training, courses, job placements. We have a program called the Dell STEM Aspire program, which is a great example where you have that collaboration with universities in Ireland, in UK, and in France, and amongst others, where we organize 12 months intern and mentoringships to support, and in this case, connects female talent to STEM education and show them how a career in IT could be. So those are just some of the examples of focus. I wish there was only one area, but it really goes around, the school system, the higher education with STEM, the reskilling and upskilling, and under all of that, how we as citizens can learn to use digital skills. So thanks.
Thank you so much. I think you really highlighted a few of the examples and also of the concrete projects in our publication. And as I used to say, we have been discussing how dangerous for democracy it is to have immigration, but honestly, people losing their job because they cannot participate in the new digital era is a much bigger threat, in my view, to democracy than anything else. And not recognizing yourself in the future of a continent is really dangerous. And I think we saw it, some of the consequences on the US side after the aid crisis. Well, having said that, I would also just remind everyone to thank, first of all, you, Anja, for your great work also in Digital Europe as an ambassador of digital skills. To read the guide, there are 3 pan-European projects mentioned there. One is about upskilling and how to do organization around upskilling of the workforce. One is around forecasting of disruption. So if you are a person in this industry, what are your skills and how can you easily be transformed into another role, and what are the skills that you are lacking. We are actually able to do that, and Agoria, our Belgium association, has developed this methodology. And the last one is really bringing, as Anja said, teachers into the digital age. How do we make a huge pan-European project of bringing our teachers into the digital age and enabling and empowering them to basically participate and be the teachers of this era? Thank you so much, Anja. And turning to the last speaker of this panel, to Ulf, who is also a board member of Digital Europe and from Ericsson. So who better to talk to about connectivity than you, Ulf? So we have seen that we still have issues with connectivity, both in rural areas, but also for companies, really to boost the economy. So in a range of areas. So how do you think that better connectivity can bridge the digital divide between citizens and businesses, and also bring the rural areas closer to the heart of European activities?
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you for that question. And I think we just, when we talk about connectivity, and of course, we have highlighted that in our digital investment plan as one of 5 broad priority areas. But we need, of course, to recognize that connectivity is a platform and an enabler and a basic requirement for all the other areas where we also need to see investments. So it's absolutely crucial. And just before coming into the sort of digital divide that we see between cities, rural areas, just to pick up on what Anthony said, and a bit also what Frederick said, that we need to set our sights high here in Europe. And just comparing where we are with other leading regions in the world, we are lagging behind. I mean, be it on fiber, be it on download speeds of our 4G networks, be it in 5G rollout. So that we need to keep that in mind. But as you say, it's really serious that we see this digital divide between cities and rural areas. But as Hillary started out by saying, we need to remind ourselves, this is not, we don't lack the technology. Technology is here. It's just creating the right conditions, enabling conditions for the rollout of technology. Of course, setting high ambitions, it's very important with a political engagement around this. Then we know, of course, that most of the investments are in the private sector, but here at this particular time, with the recovery from COVID, obviously, as has been recognized also by the Council, there is also a role for governments to step in here and to ensure, of course, as always, that it doesn't crowd out private financing. But I think we see, as we have highlighted in our digital investment plan, that there are a number of areas where there is a role for governments to play. And one is, of course, rural connectivity. It's unacceptable, I think, from a fairness or for the enterprises in rural areas that they are not benefiting from high-speed connectivity. And we see, and that is actually a concrete example also in our digital investment plan, that we have seen in a study that we did together with another Digital Europe company through Analysis Mason. We see that 5G fixed wireless access could be both a complement and an alternative to roll out broadband connectivity in rural areas. And I think, as has been recognized also, of course, by Commission and member states, we need to have technology neutrality here. I mean, we set our sights, what is the capacity of networks that we need to see? And I think that with the fixed wireless access, we can see that there will be tremendous benefits. Once again, it's not either or here, it's complementing other technologies. And then another area that is also highlighted in digital investment plan is, of course, about smart industries and smart basically everything. And of course, here again, to enable that, yes, we need a connectivity platform through 5G and fiber. But here also, I think governments can do a lot to stimulate pilots, to stimulate uptake of technologies, to enable for SMEs and others to test the technologies in order to improve efficiency of manufacturing, etc. So I think the combination of continuous private investments stimulated by the right investment conditions, but also government action here. And of course, as Anthony said, this should probably be part of a sort of a flagship effort, because we cannot afford to have 27 countries going off in different directions. It needs to be coordinated, obviously, with common objectives, but at the same time, there is now a clear role for governments to step up here, both to bridge sort of the digital divide within Europe, but also to narrow the gap and with other regions.
Thank you so much. So we have actually seen some countries taking a bit of a lead and setting concrete targets on connectivity. You know, every citizen should have a minimum connectivity of X. Is this some of the things that we need, like really concrete targets? So what should be the minimum connectivity of people?
Yeah, no, but I think that what we have been doing in Digital Europe, as you said, referring back to our manifesto, I think that was important. But when we look at the speed of technology change and what technology can serve as enabler, I think we should actually raise the bar and set even higher targets. And I think it's basically unacceptable that we have these still in 2020. We face these digital divides. So definitely targets are important, because especially if they are, as we are now discussing, linked to concrete investment projects by member states.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ulf. So maybe just turning to Frederick and to Eva. Frederick, first, you. I mean, one of the big talks of the town is the data spaces, right? I mean, how can we accelerate this process, and have we accelerated this process? And how do you see this EU funding? We have the PSI directive, you know, there's a lot of public data, you know, that should have been made available. Is at least that is one of our suggestion is to basically, you know, fund some of the data availability that can come from governments also. But how do you see the whole data space discussion? And would this be one of the flagships?
Thank you, Cecilia. Yeah, indeed, I share this view. I think we have a lot being out there, and the Commission has been doing a lot of work beginning of 2020, coming with a strategy on data, which was really important and useful, where you have a clear identification of what the issues are. And I think the crisis, the COVID crisis, was also an opportunity to raise awareness for leaders, also an opportunity to upgrade skills for many people. We have now a global awareness, and that might explain why we were quite successful in having a record, in having an agreement by the European Council on the clear priority. If you come to data, I'm not going into the detail of what are the barriers, obstacle, hurdles that we have to overcome. You know, on legislation, we have different views, but I think we have a lot of data, and the way we should use them. I think the first step when you have an objective is to give a clear priority. And if I remember correctly, the Commission has identified 9. The European Council has focused on a specific one in health, on data space, which could be also the angle for the rest, and with a clear timeline saying by the end of 2021 we should achieve this. And it boils down to the global debate. We need a truly single digital market, and we need a truly single data space. And there are steps to be taken. And the first step is that we have political public awareness that we need to move forward, and that we can overcome what we have seen, legislative blockage, and that we raise awareness on all this. And this is why those exchange are really important, that we go into the same direction. It was we have been trying to do on this. I think Anthony has a much more experience than I have to clearly, or the European Parliament knows exactly what we should do. But I think we have made a major step by, let's agree that we need to go into the same direction. And that's the main message I have. And this is why what we believe is important.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we see the effect of it, and really the common messages coming out from the council. It's as you say, it's not usually what we hear when we look at the council, but I think we have seen that the COVID has really moved the leaders together also on this subject, and of course we will continue to provide feedback. So Eva, these data spaces, there are really, I mean, many people believe that it can really give us a push, and a lot of SMEs, not having to struggle to find the data anymore, or struggle, are we GDPR compliant or not, and so on. Do you think that this could really be kind of this investment plan, together with really the accumulation of safe data in data spaces? Do you think this could really be like the push that takes Europe into a new growth phase?
Well, I've been actually pretty vocal about that topic over the past couple of months, because I actually believe that one of these very paramount legislations that we have the opportunity to pass in the coming months and years will be especially the data sharing one, because it could serve as an enabler for so many things. And I think that data spaces are exactly the spheres that we need to act. And most importantly, I think part of the problem is to incentivize that data sharing and resharing, the usage, in order to create a different culture with this data that has been accumulated. So it's legislation on one hand, and on the other hand is also soft measures in a way. We need to make available the public sector data, but this has to be also embraced in a way. So there's legislation, but there's also a kind of a change and a shift in mindset. And I think there are so many companies that are aware of everything they could basically achieve if they have access to that data, and many more that are not aware. So I think we have to foster this different type of culture. But Cecilia, if you also allow me, I just wanted to briefly touch base on this target of 20%, because as you know, I might have to leave a little bit earlier due to an internal EPP group meeting. On the targets, I think targets to a certain extent are important. They kind of give us a goal that we need to reach. But what's more important on this 20% is that on one hand, countries and member states work on their plans, but they're not isolated plans in one way or another. There are plans, some of them that they're a bit more coordinated, that they do some of those plans together, because we do not want a huge also fragmentation. So if we speak about more major investments in connectivity, for example, there has to be some sort of a common goal, aim, which goes beyond just the number that we need to achieve, but it's more concrete on the project. And so I think we need to enable various discussions of those projects to take place, not just in isolation, member state by member state, but also through different areas and regions, or Europe as a whole, in order for us to kind of say, we just did not invest the money into something, but we did it with a concrete purpose and a very concrete aim that helps us enable our region. So in one way, again, it could be done through legislation, but as we have the resources available, it would be very smart that those projects have a better coordination, and they're done with a little bit looking at the bigger picture of Europe and how we want to position ourselves. And definitely the data spaces and the exchange, usage, and reuse of data will be key to that growth and potential that European companies and different sectors have.
Thank you so much. Maybe just a few comments to what you said, both Eva and Frederick. As you have seen most likely in the manifesto, Europe has an extremely low share of unicorns. If you look at SMEs, an internal market is hardly really an internal market. It's only 8% trading across one border. And I can tell you that I meet many SMEs, and I also have on this call, many of our leaders from the countries. And one of the biggest struggles of these fantastic companies that are digital is the availability of data. So for example, within healthcare, they're in radiology, they can't get enough pictures. And to get the pictures, it takes them 2 years, and it's not safe, and they don't know how to use it. And in 2 years, they're out of money, and they either have to sell the company or close it down. So there is actually a huge need of actually being able, as an SME, to access data and not being overwhelmed with legislative things that you are uncertain of, and so on. So this is definitely very well taken, and from our view, one of the things that we need to solve. So thank you so much. I want to jump right to the poll, please. All the panelists. I know that Eva, you might have to go, but as long as I have you, the longer the better. So maybe looking at the poll results. Let's see. So it actually seems that digital transformation, innovation, and Green Deal is really favored here, and digital education, skills, and inclusion. But I think we can say there is maybe a little bit of overweight to digital transformation, and I think we can say that digital skills is a part of digital transformation. So maybe that at least it has quite an indication of where participants think the money should be put. Luckily for all of us, there is not one of them that is only on zero, and seems to be important, all of them. So digital education, skills and inclusion, and digital transformation, innovation, and Green Deal. So let me turn to you, Anthony, and ask a little bit how you see the link between the Green Deal and the digital investment. I've heard some voices saying like, well, as long as we can't make it digital, then we can make it green. Will it be like two separate pools of money? So 37 for green and 20 for digital, or will there be a mix of these two, and some sliding doors between those? You are on mute. Can somebody unmute Anthony, please?
How's that? Sorry, I was away from you for a bit due to a system crash. So I just caught the results of the poll. Quite interesting. This is the invisible hand at work, that the Green Deal digital investment got 37% of votes, which perfectly matches how much money it should get. Indeed, we don't regard them as separate pools, not least because that's not how the world works. We see digital as pretty essential to an awful lot of the greening projects that we are pushing out. Just to mention a few that were in a package adopted by the Commission just last week. The renovation wave will be absolutely dependent upon digital modeling of the energy efficiency of buildings. We shouldn't just sort of get on in there with traditional methods and apply insulation everywhere. This needs to be done in a more intelligent and smart fashion. If we take the mix between various renewable power sources and the push for clean hydrogen, both, and they are connected pieces of a puzzle. Basically, the hydrogen system can be an enormous battery for the slightly varying output of renewables, but it will only work if you have a massive digitization of the energy system. This goes way beyond, smart meters in individual users' homes. It's going to the very heart of how the system works, and the examples go on. Of course, there is also important homework to be done in the digital sector's own backyard, and I know various actors in the sector are doing that, be that on repairability, circularity, recycling of rare earth materials and so on that go in the kit, or in the very innovative things we're seeing in the server community on how to channel all of that excess heat into district heating, or to otherwise minimize, sometimes even to zero or beyond, even the historic emissions of certain parts of the digital sector. Those are all investments which, if they are supported through the Recovery and Resilience Fund, can be tagged as both digital and green. And if we take a more strategic project like the European role in processors, what we are really focusing on as certainly a growth business, not only because of its inherent greenness, but also because of the performance constraints that one otherwise faces, is the whole area of low energy chips, which we think is an area where European players can build cooperatively on the opportunity.
Thank you so much. So I have time for maybe one or two questions from the audience. So Chris, would you please kindly assist, on one or two questions here?
Well, Cecilia, thank you. So we have a couple of questions from Hugo Rousseau, which are connected, and that is, how can we ensure that citizens and SMEs feel comfortable using technology and can better use technology? And if I have time for another one, we have a question from Peter Boyukliev, and his question, building on the data discussion that you had earlier, is about open data, public data. So does the pandemic prove that the EU needs to be much bolder with open data? And if this is, of course, one of the 10 investment ideas that we have in our investment plan as well. Back to you, Cecilia. Thanks.
So for citizen, why don't I turn to Anya for the first one, for the first question, Anya? Oh, you are muted. So can someone please unmute?
Yeah, no, I am unmuted now. So the question was how we get citizens to feel more comfortable with technology, right? Was that the question?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think obviously the long-term answer to this is going back to, we need to start educating in school so that next generations feel much more comfortable with use of technology, but also using public areas like libraries and other places where we can do and provide access to technology. I think is going to be super important. We also saw during the pandemic that some member states used the television to actually promote education, and having much more focus on how digitalization impacts life is really going to help. There was a part of the question around the SMEs and how we can get them to overcome the barriers. And I would say that systems like the European Digital Innovation Hubs, where a company can receive trainings and advice and other services, that's a place where they can acquire skills and resources. So I would say, providing opportunities like that will definitely help.
Yes, and thank you so much, Anya, and totally in line also with one of the proposals in the paper to create, really visible lighthouse industry showcases in each country where their strength is, where the rest of the industry can kind of see and top-notch digital technologies applied. Maybe turning to first to Ulf and then to Friedrich. Should we be more bold on data sharing, and how should we do that? So Ulf, turning to you. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Well, data is I mean, it's the nervous system, the lifeblood, etc. of the digital economy. So I think we need to ensure that we have openness in transfer of data. But once again, I mean, being a global company, but of course based in Europe with our heart in Europe, we also need to look that we are not sort of blocking the data transfers between Europe and the rest of the world. I mean, still, we're a small part of the world, we're a small part of the global economy, but of course, if Europe is to thrive, we need to have data flows open, and not only across the Atlantic, but globally. And as some of you know, we have a challenge there after the so-called Schrems II decision. And this is not that a well-known issue, but I think for Europe to be the home of competitive companies, a competitive economy, we need to secure the data flows issue, and that probably would be our priority when we talk about data, and we run a risk of ignoring that issue. Can I just add one thing? Since we heard so much about digital and green, I think we should be proud, coming from our industry, that we are definitely digital leaders, but we are a really green industry, probably the one which can play the most important role in enabling the Green Deal and make it both green and digital. And the power of our technologies in order to help other sectors to become more energy efficient is gravely underestimated. And we can do that with today's technology. This is not something fancy for 6G or something like that. We can do it already today. And I think there's a strong power in our industry to be an enabler also for the Green Deal. Just to add that.
Thank you so much, Ulf. And what Ulf also highlighted here is a focus from of course from Ericsson, but also from Digital Europe in general on the data flow situations. And we're actually right now conducting a study with thousands of companies to see the effect of the fall of the Privacy Shield and the new rules on the SCCs. So, Frederick, how do we enable more data? Can we get the member states to really collaborate and unfold the potential of all the great both public and private data that we have and create a second growth wave?
Thank you. Just to support what has been just said by Ulf, I think on the greening and the digital, I think that's really key, that we are also a front runner in certain field. To come back on data, I can't speak for other member states and take the place. What I see from where we are is that this issue is very sensitive, and I think is if you know me, maybe typical European behavior behind this, psychological, what you do with data. We feel that in public acceptance, there are still limited and fear on what we could do with data, personal or non-personal. And I think that's also a key issue to overcome. And it's what I said in my introduction, it's also very important to link it with security. I think from the day we will have more security and we can convince people, then we will convince member states to move forward on this. And that's maybe just this angle is crucial, because we feel by leaders that sometimes beyond purely economical interest, there are also sometimes the material is not well understood by leaders, because there are, this fear from public opinions. And I think there, as I said, when we have think tank and people, experts and leaders talking to the people, that's really important, that we have. This is not also a threat, it's also an opportunity to become also leader in this field.
Thank you so much. Definitely, I mean, if you look at in our publication, you will see some very concrete examples of release of specific types of data leading to, for example, a boost in the Danish fintech environment, in new innovations in health and other areas. So I think you will find some very good use cases in the publication on how data can really boost the economy and growth. So I would like to thank the panel. I think we had a very good discussion here, and thank you for the input. I think we come from both having the Commission here, the Parliament here, the Council here with the connection to all the countries, and two industry leaders really representing an industry view on what can actually be done. As Ulf said, the technology is there. There's nothing we cannot do. It's all about how we now get the understanding and how to do it together. And as Anja said, I mean, without people with the right skills, well, nobody will understand how to use the technology anyway. So we really need to bridge that gap also. So a big thank you to this panel. I'm really truly happy that you spent the time with us, and thank you for your great contributions. So I think we passed through the question to the audience. Bye, Friedrich. Bye, Anja. And please stick around. You. Don't go. If you can stay, please stay. So maybe, yeah. Turning to the last speaker, as I told you in the start, and Chris told you in the start, Margarethe Schrambuck was not able to attend, but she actually made some really cool videos that I urge you to stay and watch. Margarethe was really a front runner on digital under the Austrian presidency, and really dedicated to bringing the digital agenda forward. So you can really see the string through the Austrian president, through the German, and now the Portuguese presidencies, where these things have been at the top of the agenda all the way. So let me allow you to get Margarethe's view on how to spend the money wisely.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, the corona crisis has shown us how important digitization is to maintain our economic and state systems. Digitization is like a vaccine for our economies. It is important that we create together frameworks that help our businesses to transform into a more digitalized world. In Austria, we have established a digital action plan, which involves all stakeholders. We have three main targets. First, to involve everybody and to leave nobody behind. This is an important part of digitization, and it involves digital skills for all people living in Austria. The second part is to help businesses to transform, and here especially the small and medium-sized businesses. It's not about the larger companies, but it's about these small family-owned business, independent in which branch and in which topic they are focused in. It is important that they also get help in this digital transformation. The third topic is digital administration. It is important that we offer as a state our services to the people and the companies in Austria in a digitalized way. Here, mobile first is our motto. All three topics are part of our digital action plan in Austria, and it is important that we put all stakeholders on the table. I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion, and digital transformation is the key for success for Europe.
So that was the first, and we have a few questions to Margarethe also that she kindly answered. I want to maybe highlight one thing. It's really these national leaders that is going to walk the talk and make the plans and make it happen. And maybe just to Mary O'Donoghue, who had a question from the audience on how to address the public administration. Actually, the digital transformation of the public administration has been a part of the document that came out from the Commission on what are the guidelines, what are, you know, some of the main themes that we need to see in these plans. And as you hear, actually, Margarethe, and as we saw before, the Minister of Economy and Digital from Portugal, also saw these see this as a part of their plans. So hopefully we will see a common focus on skills and on also public digital transformation. So we also posed three other questions to Margarethe, namely that what is Austria's national digital priorities and the spending, and you know, how will you do this in the healthcare? How can we strengthen the Austrian healthcare system? And the last one is linked to the Frequel 4. There was some countries, Denmark, Austria, Sweden, and remind me one more, that was a bit reluctant to spend all these money and who wanted more control on how to do this. However, she would like to add an explanation of what was this all about, and why did they actually have this approach. Please go ahead.
First of all, I'm very happy that we have a target, a common target of minimum 20% across Europe on digital transformation. This helps a lot. For Austria, we are very clear what we want to achieve. First, it's about a transformation of public administration. It's about making lives easier for citizens and also for the companies in Austria. Second, it's about digital education. So a lot we will also put in the digital education of our youngsters, of our students in schools, but also at university. For example, we will build a new digital university in Austria. And third, it's about businesses and about companies to help them to transform. Our third goal is to help companies in their digital transformation. All these three targets will be part of our digital recovery plan. I'm happy that especially in this corona crisis, we could rely on a robust and digitalized healthcare system in Austria. For the future, we of course will invest further in this healthcare system. And this includes telemedicine as well as robots and the inclusion of artificial intelligence into our healthcare system. At the same time, we will always take care that the people are in the center of everything we do. The human is finally deciding and not the machine. What the machine can do, it can help and it can assist the doctors and the nurses, but it can never take the final decision. In the course of the corona crisis, it has shown to us that this is the right way, and we will further invest in digitizing our healthcare system. For us, it was important to make sure how the money in Europe is spent. And here are two focuses which are important for us. One is digitization, and the other one is to take care of the environment. Both targets have found into the recovery plan, and this is important for us. So we were successful. With companies, when they need new money and budget, it's always important that they show where they invest. And this is also important for us. And it's not about controlling other countries. It is about helping them in their digital and environmental transformation. It is about the Commission to look at the plans and not on Italy to look at Austria's plan or Austria to look at Italy's plan. We have agreed on a certain process, and it's now time for the Commission to execute on this.
So I think, at least from my, it's really wonderful how Margareta, she really shows human oversight, something that I've been discussing very much in the AI group. She talks about, you know, the machine and the AI can actually help the healthcare system. A very, very good live example on that. And thank you, Anja and Ulf, for reminding me that it was Holland. I'm getting older and it slipped my mind. I think that what we have seen, maybe just wrapping up on closing remarks, first of all, I'm super proud that we have had over 200 participants in the whole time. Excellent speakers and discussions. There is still a long way for us to do what it takes really to communicate what digital really can contribute with to the recovery of the economy and to more inclusion and a greener environment. But I think this is the first step. Second, I'm amazed to see that it seems that everybody's pulling in the same direction, and you know, where there is a will, there is a way. It seems that we see the council, we see the parliament, we see the commission, but also private sector really being aligned on where to go. And now it's much more about the how. So it's much more about getting the right targets, getting very, very clear goals that we all pursue, and really to get the right projects and investments going. And it seems that even with the Frequel 4, even though we were scared that the money was disappearing out of our hands in digital, it also seems that that process might even have improved the ability of communicating and alignment across the different countries in Europe. I want to thank all the speakers. We are very, very grateful for your time. I want to thank my board members and the president for really letting this happen and driving thought leadership within Digital Europe. I kindly ask you before you leave to answer the poll on if you found this session valuable and you help us to improve, to learn what we can do better. I hope that you have learned a lot. I have definitely learned that we have taken one step on a long journey on basically aligning what are the big digital investments that we need to make in Europe to see ourselves in a different situation in 5 years. We create the future now with the decisions that we make, with the contributions that we give, and Digital Europe will definitely do our part and play our role in reaching the target of a stronger Digital Europe. Thank you so much for your contributions and your participations today. Thank you.